Thank you.
Recording in progress. Okay, here we are. Parsha Pekudei. We are at the last Parsha of the Chumash Shamos. I almost said Chumash Bereshis, and I was like, that would have been very awkward. So here, what? It is a very, very long Chumash. It has very few Rashis. Vayakal and Pekudei both have very few Rashis because we've already had these conversations before, and so we already had, we already know what's going on over here. So there are very few Rashis. Pekudei has a few more than Vayakal, but like not majorly. So we have a couple of things that we need to do. First of all, it's starting from chapter 38, verse 21. If you're going to find it in your Chumash, so it's Chumash Shamos, chapter 38, verse 21 is from the Book of Numbers. From the Book of Exodus. I lied. I didn't lie. I mixed up. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so Parsha Pekudei, first of all, is the last Parsha. We have a lot of things that we have to talk about. First of all, today's Rosh Chodesh. It's the first day of Rosh Chodesh, Adar 2. So today is the official date is Adar 1. It's the 30th day of the first month of Adar, but it's also Rosh Chodesh Adar 2, because we have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, today and tomorrow, both Rosh Chodesh. So we have the interesting convergence of two Adars going on right here today. We're both Rosh Chodesh, we're 30 Rosh Chodesh Adar 1, and we're Rosh Chodesh Adar 2. And this is my own thought, so you absolutely 100% do not have to accept it. But I have a couple of kids whose birthdays are in Adar. And so they don't celebrate the birthday in Adar 1. They celebrate birthdays in Adar 2. Unless you were born in Adar 1, all Adar, huh?
I was born in Adar 2, and I always thought it was the other way around.
No. Adar 2 is considered the real Adar. It's close to Nisan, so that's like what but if you want to celebrate both, you could totally celebrate both, obviously. But what happened in my house was the kids were like, oh, it's my mini birthday. It's like, it's starting the. My daughter's like, I don't want to be 18 yet, so I'm going to push it off another month. But there's a place where it felt to me that Adar 1 is like a dress rehearsal. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's actually true halachically, but like all the things that we're going to celebrate in the fullness of it in Adar 2, we're celebrating. We didn't make the birthday cakes. We didn't give them any presents or any of that kind of stuff, but we did say happy mini birthday to you. So like there is this place where Adar 1 almost feels like, like things that are happening in Adar 1 are kind of dress rehearsal in a certain way.
I just realized my grandmother's birthday was last Adar technically, but also today. It's like Rosh Chodesh Adar is her birthday.
It's her yahrzeit. Okay, so we should have learning. This is supposed to be your grandmother as well. What's her name?
Kayla Sarah Yonatan.
Kayla Sarah Bat Yonatan, whose yahrzeit is, well, it's interesting because of yahrzeits they actually do in the first Adar, by and large. But we're going to count as Rosh Chodesh Adar because it's Rosh Chodesh, so it doesn't matter. Ben Yonatan, Kayla Sarah Bat Yonatan. So her neshama should have an aliyah, and our Torah should be a merit for her as well. And also, I wanted to have our learning be a little bit of a merit, or whatever, tipping the scales for all the people in Ukraine who should be kept safe, and the people who are trying to get to safety, and who are, there isn't a whole lot that we can do from here, but our Torah learning definitely, we believe, makes a difference. So our learning should also tip the scale to help protect them and keep them safe and help them get to wherever they need to be going safely. And we should have a resolution. I said to somebody today, like Hashem's plan should unfold with Rahmanis, with compassion and with mercy, and we should be able to see how it all ends good. I'm not sure what that looks like right now, but that's why he's God, because he has a way bigger view than I do. So we should be able to see that his plan ends with compassion, and that we get to see the goodness. And our Torah learning should be in that merit as well. So that was something. So that was one thing that I wanted to say. The other, back to my Rosh Chodesh thought, which may or may not be true. It feels like we're making this transition from what we were wishing to what is actually going to be. Adar 1 is where we have this vision for ourselves, but it gets actualized in Adar 2. Meaning, if I have two kids who had birthdays in Adar, so their Adar 1, it wasn't a real birthday. It was just kind of like, play acting a little bit. but Adar 2 is when their birthday is really going to be. And so my first bracha for us, as we stand here at that transition of Adar 1 and Adar 2, that we should take a moment and think about the things that we wish for ourselves, because we're moving into a space where we can really actualize it, because we're going from Adar 1 into Adar 2. So they're going to become much more real. So we should think for ourselves, and we should pray for ourselves and for the people around us, for like, yeah, like, what is it, something that we're keeping in the recesses of our heart that we're a little too nervous to really put into words, but like, yalla, let's do it. Let's bring it into potential, because really that's what Adar 2 is gonna be doing on a very deep level. So that's my first bracha. The other thing that, and as we start, is that this Parsha's Pekudei is our last Parsha of Shamos, which means what else is happening on this Shabbos? Chazak, v'nit chazek. Did we do one already? Did we do Bereshis together? I was like, as I'm thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so familiar, right? So Shabbos Chazak means at the end, if you look to the end, when the Torah reader is going to read that the cloud of Hashem was on the Mishkan every day, and then the cloud. I'm poorly translating. That's why I don't do translation for a living. And the fire was there at night in front of the Jewish people for all their journeys, and everybody's going to say, Bemet, and everybody's going to say, Chazak, v'nit chazek. We should be strong, we should be strong, we should be strengthened. And there's really such a powerful bracha in that I want to also explore for a second. I want to, this place of, first of all, if we're going to go to the end for a second, the Chumash, the whole Chumash stops, or doesn't stop, it ends with this place where we say that Hashem's revelation, whether it's a cloud, whether it's a fire, is with us in all of our journeys. All of our journeys. It's not just when we're in a specific space, but wherever we go and wherever we are, Hashem is going with us. Sometimes we'll see it in one form, sometimes we'll see it in another form. And really, that place of chazak, we are saying to be strong and to be strong and to be strengthened. If you go to a shul, I'm not saying I'm actually going to do this, but if one was to go to shul and be there when they finish the Torah, and to have everybody scream out, be strong, and be strengthened, this is a chance for us personally to use the power of everybody blessing us to be strong and to be strong and to be strengthened. That where is there someplace in our journey that we want to take that blessing of the community, of all people who know us, don't know us, love us, and are wishing us so much strength, so much spine, so much fortitude, so much, yalla, you can do this. And if we're there and we think about it, then we kind of are making a vessel for the blessing that they're going to give us. We're giving it to all of it. It's kind of equal opportunity blessing. But if we make the vessel to receive it personally, say, what do I want to be strengthened in? What is something that in my journey I would love to have the blessing of strength to continue to do? Then be there. Let's show up. Let's actually tap into a blessing that is literally being given to us. And if you go to even the most calm shul, they're not going to say this like, no. They're going to like belt it out. Go to a noisy shul, kind of like some of the shuls we know here. They're really going to like belt it out to you. So like we should really take that opportunity to receive the blessing from the community, to say, what do I want to be strengthened in? And if by chance we don't actually make it into a shul, I'm going to give us a bracha that we tap into the bracha anyway, that we take the time and we think, like, if I was in shul right now and this is about the time that they would be doing the Torah reading, this is kind of the blessing that I would love to be strengthened in. So I don't know how legit that is, but I'm making it legit. So like, yeah, we could do this. Okay. So right, if we get there, great. And if we don't get there, really to take the time and to think and to make it a conscious, to bring it down from our Adar Rishon place, our wishful place, into our Adar 2 place, into our actualizing place, and then to receive this awesome blessing for it. I think that's really like, that's a nice combo over there. So we should try to pull that off. Okay. Now, the other thing about being chazak is that we have to look not only at this parsha, which is usually enough for us, we're doing fine for time, but we also have to zoom out for a second. We have to look at the whole book, because when we close the book, we aren't only closing this parsha, but we're closing the whole book. And there's a whole different theme going on in the whole book than we have just for this parsha. So we're going to work out and then go in, because I think, like, I have this like Shalom brewing in my head, and I hope it's going to like work as it comes out, but I think it's going to all work together. So the whole book, we know, it's called the Book of Shamos, and we spoke about this, that it's called Sefer HaGeula, the Book of Redemption. And the Book of Redemption starts off with exile and starts with really terrible slavery in really bad places, but it doesn't end when we cross the sea. It doesn't end when we're away from Pharaoh and the Egyptians and whatever's holding us back, right? We've learned enough Hasidus to know that Mitzrayim and Egypt is all the stuff that holds us back and holds us down. And one thing which I think is a side comment is super interesting to me, that we get to learn all about the Exodus Parshiot when it's not Pesach. These are all the stories that we're going to have coming up soon when we get to Pesach, right? It's about 6 weeks away. No need to panic. It's going to be fun. Don't worry. It's great. No need to panic. It's awesome. It's going to be fantastic. But sometimes when we get to Pesach, we don't actually have so much time to think about my personal redemption and where do I want to go and how do I want to be free and what's holding me back and what do I want. We're like dealing with like the details of what's going on and Seder and food, blah, 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 right? So we have this pre-learning almost of going through the Exodus situation when it's not Pesach. And so that way, when we get to Pesach, like we're already in the mode of thinking in terms of liberation and where do we want to go from here. And not only are we, the other thing that we're getting from this is that, you know, every single Chag has a specific energy that is sort of very, very highlighted at that Chag. So Pesach is going to be the energy of redemption and freedom, right? We know that Sukkot is joy and everyone has their own thing. But the question that we're closing the book that talks about redemption, the Book of Redemption, means we don't only get to be redeemed, or our personal redemption doesn't only happen when we are in an ideal situation. You know, Pesach, it's spring, the sun is shining and things are blooming, and unless you have allergies, I think that's a really nice thing to see, you know, and everything's starting to come to life and life. But what if we're ready to tackle freedom and that's not the situation? What if it's winter? What if it's nasty weather? What if it's yucky and cold? And we still are yearning for freedom? Then we've just done that. That was what this whole Book of Shamos was dealing with freedom in a less than ideal situation. And so the energy of the Parsha gives us that as well. So here we are, we're closing the book of Exodus. So we kind of just to remind us that we have not only one way of achieving Exodus, like when everything is perfect, when all the stars are aligned and everything's in the right situation, like then we can like break free. But also it's reminding us that if we want it, anytime it's available to us anytime we want to put the effort in to break free of whatever it is that we know is holding us back, then we can do it. And we know it because we just went through all those Torah portions in the winter, unless like you're a Southern Hemisphere, then whatever, that's a different conversation. But we've just done it. We've gone through all those portions and we've learned so much about it. And the end of it really is understanding that we don't just leave a situation. It's not just enough for us to leave Egypt. This is where I need to leave. This is what's holding me back, right? The question is, in our Torah portion, we know because we've been dealing with this a lot, the book finishes with building a home for God. And so it's not just enough to say that is no good. I have to be able to put in, but what is good? It's not just a nothing space. That's a vacuum. Vacuums are not a good place to be. But the first part is understanding that this space, this character trait, this whatever you want to call it. We all know our list is very long of all the things that are not optimal in our lives, right? That we would like to break out of. But the question is, and then what? And that's what this book of Exodus is telling us. It's not enough to just get away from that which is not good for us, but I need to be able to put something good into that place. And I need to put in whatever the equivalent of building a home for God in this particular area is. That's where I need to go with it. I need to be able to take the energy, take the character trait, take whatever it is that we're working on. It's not just enough to say, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to do this. And then when I'm going to fill it with something positive, then we're going to end up with a growth, not just a not decline. So that's kind of a little bit the overview of the whole Chumash that's going on over here. We spent lots of time talking about lots of things, so I'm not going to go back into all of those things, but that's kind of a little bit of something to think about, that as we come, and we've been dealing the last 5 weeks with very closely building a home for God, this is a time for us to stop a second and say, but if we were to zoom back, and we're closing a book that starts with our exile, and it starts with our not great place, like there is a place in our lives that we do have to remember the spaces that are less than optimal, and then say, well, look at us now, look at where we've come, look how much we've grown, look how we've changed and how we've matured. And this is something I still want to work on. And all of those are this is the time to do it. It's, because sometimes I think, and this is my personal tangent, so again, you don't have to take my personal tangents, but I think we're sometimes so caught up in whatever's going on right here, right now, we forget to zoom out and say, like, where is this? Where am I? I'm so focused, like we've been dealing with like the details of building a home for God. And we're like, you forget, like, this is the end of a conversation that starts with our exile, and that starts with us getting out of a bad place and coming to a good place and coming into a relationship with Hashem. And if we don't ever take the time to think about our journey, and we don't take the time to think about where I was and where I am and now how am I moving that forward, all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, you haven't thought about these things for like a really long time. And that becomes like, oh, that's not really so cool. So this is the time, as we close the Chumash, is a time to really stop and take the time to think about where I was and where I'm going, and what I've learned and where I've grown and where I still want to grow, because this is it. We're going to get power from the brachas and from everybody to move forward. So like, let's take advantage of that. So that's this. So l'chaim for that. Thank you. And now here we are. Finally, we get to Parshas Pekudei. Parshas Pekudei is what's called the accounting of there's two main parts. Number one is the accounting of everything that Moshe collected. This is like transparency bookkeeping number 101 of what did we take in and what did we do with it. So he's going to give very, very detailed accounts of the specific precious metals, where exactly those went, and then he's going to talk about the more general and all the threads and the this and the that's, the general of where it went. But we're going to take a look at that for a second, because that's something that I want to get to in a second. So that's the first thing we have is the accounting, and then he talks about making all the things, and then we have the actual making of all the stuff, making the vessels and making everything, and then yesterday's aliyah. Yesterday was Revi. Yesterday was the fourth aliyah. They bring all the stuff to Moshe, and Moshe has to start to put the stuff together. Okay, he's going to put all the things together, and that's going on for the next bunch of Torah portions. Just for a timeline for a second, let's stop for a second and timeline this. So Moshe comes down from the mountain on Yom Kippur on the 10th of Tishrei, and the next day he tells the people to start building the Mishkan. We had the whole conversation when they get it, but this is when the people are actually going to get the command. The first thing to do is they have a building campaign where everybody brings stuff. And the Torah tells us that within 2 days, Moshe had all the necessary materials that he needed. The builders, the contractors, whatever you want to call them, came to Moshe and said, we have enough for whatever we need to do. And so they tell everybody, stop bringing more materials. We don't need to bring any more. Said no builder ever. But when you're building a house for God, there is no such thing as we're going to just store it for something else, right? If everything is exact, and B, everything is coming from somebody's personal contribution. So if you take my contribution and you just kind of stick it on the side for when we need repairs, that doesn't feel so good. And even though you would say, well, I don't know which is my gold and which is my silver, but when we know that part of it didn't actually get used for the house of God, that is not like a cool, inspiring feeling. It's really not. And so when we build a home for God, and we see this later on in Parsha Nasa, when the princes of each tribe brought a donation for the dedication of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, they each bring a bull and a half a wagon. And so each two princes bring one wagon, and everybody's like, cheapskate, gonna give me a whole wagon? What's the big deal? Why do you bring 6 wagons? Why Why can't you? Would it have been so much more expensive to bring a whole wagon? Like, what's the deal? And the answer that the Rebbe talks about is that everything in holiness has to be precise. There's no random space there that's just sitting around doing nothing. If it fits in 6, we don't put it into 7, and we put it in precise. And the Gemara has whole conversations about how all the heavy stuff had to fit in very precisely so that it would stay, because every single space has to be used. Even the space of the wagon is part of the contribution to Hashem. It has to all be used. It's not like, there's some people, like there's some people who know how to pack. And there's some people who don't really know how to pack. So the people who don't really know how to pack, like if you repack their stuff, like you get like another 7 boxes from Amazon in their suitcase. We just took it out and took out the packaging and stuff like that, right? So the Levium had to know how to pack, because every single bit of space was godly and was holy. And so everything had to be used. You couldn't just randomly have just throw it all in and hope it all fits. Like, it wasn't like that. And so here, when we have the donations given, if it isn't going to actually be used now, we're not accepting it. We're not starting an endowment fund for future dedication things in the Mishkan. Like, that's not happening. Yes, every year they're going to have a collection for the ongoing cost, but that was a yearly thing. So that means per year, I was in the pile. It wasn't just like my things were stuck in a corner and who knows what was going to happen with it. So let's say on the 11th they get the commandment. 2 days they get all the materials, and then the Gemara tells us that they start building immediately, and they finish building all the pieces, all the components on the 25th day of Kislev. That means it's a very, very quick construction over there. It goes from let's say the 13th day of Tishrei. It's like maybe just over 2 months. It's about just over 2 months that they built all the things for the Mishkan. But then what happens is that it doesn't. Hashem says to Moshe, but we're not putting it up yet. It's going to put into storage for a little bit. Okay, so the Gemara tells us that the 25th of Tishrei the 25th of Kislev goes to God and's like, it's not fair. I should have the dedication ceremony. Why are you taking this away from me? And God's like, I got a good one for you. I'm saving a good dedication of the tab of the Beis Hamikdash for you. What happens on the 25th day of Kislev? Hanukkah. So the rededication of the temple is going to happen on the day that the pieces of the tabernacle were actually finished. So the day was already established as a day for dedication. Hashem's like, don't worry, 25th of Kislev, I got you covered, right? Anyway, so in our Parsha, they're going to talk about that on the first day of the first month. They're going to start to put together the Mishkan, and what we know that it's going to come up again, and later on in the Chumash, that the first day of the month of Nisan was when the Mishkan is up and running and ready to go. Now, what happens is for the week before, the Mishkan is in it's not in disarray, like full dress rehearsal, like in preparation mode. Everything's made already, but for that week before, so from the 23rd of Adar until the 1st of Nisan, Moshe is the acting Kohen Gadol. They put the Mishkan together every single day, and he's teaching Aaron and his sons all of the service that they have to do. So Moshe's doing it. They're the Kohanim. He's the high priest, and he's showing them everything that has to happen. So that's what's going to happen over here. We're going to have Moshe starting to show the people. It's the end of our Parsha, where all the materials come to Moshe. It's going to happen on the 23rd of Adar. He's going to start putting it together. But until the first day of Nisan, the show is not starting for real. Aaron is not the acting Kohen Gadol until the first day of Nisan. And then we're going to have the end of, if you take for a second and you look to the end of the Parsha, we'll see that in chapter 40, verse 34 and 35. So they're ready to go in, and the cloud covers the whole thing, covers the whole ark, the whole tabernacle. He could not go in. There was such a cloud, there was such a presence of Hashem, he couldn't physically get into the building. He and Aaron couldn't get into the building at that point. And And later on in another part of the Chumash, it's going to talk about how Moshe and Aaron daven together, and the cloud lifts up, so they're actually able to come in, and Aaron's able to do the service. And where Aaron feels very bad, he feels this is like an indictment of him and his, he's not really fit to do this role. And Moshe like, it's fine. And Moshe blesses the people. So this is really kind of like a little bit of a timeline of what's going on over here. So the cloud resting and not letting the people in, that's going to actually happen on the first day of Nisan. We're kind of like coming into that space over here. Did you have a question that I just imagined that you raised your? Okay, Beseda.
Question.
Yes.
So Moshe really is the person that has reached the highest level possible of humanity and still couldn't go into the Kodesh Kodashim on Mayanot could?
Well, this is first of all.
It's not that, but
First of all, correct. But here's another step. Here's a step forward. They can't even come in to the Mishkan. They can't walk into it at all on day one. Meaning the week before Sababa, they're going in and out and they're taking it apart. And there's an opinion of the Gemara that they put it up and took it down 3 times every single day. Like they would do the Avodah, take it. Other people said other opinions are that he put it up and then he took it down, once a day, and somebody did it only once. But when it's real time, they can't get in. The presence of Hashem is so real.
what happens with that level of the presence of Hashem? It stays in the Kodesh Kodashim or not even there?
So the way it looks from the Psukim, if you look at the end of the Parsha, right, they can't get in, and then it talks about that the cloud, verse 36 and 37, talks about this cloud lifts up off the Mishkan, and then they knew that they could travel. Meaning there was something about that place of the cloud over the Mishkan was this intense revelation that they couldn't access. Meaning until the cloud lifted up, it didn't allow them access into the actual Mishkan. Where did that? So in the time of the desert, the Torah tells us it was in the cloud, it was in the fire. It was so clear to them where it was and what they could do. Right? It's,
Well, it's like the home of Hashem in the world. But if Hashem's fully, if his presence is there in a way that we can perceive it that much,
we can't get in.
We can't share that.
We can't share, exactly. It has to be a little bit, exactly. There has to be a little bit of space, which is so true of the whole world of if Hashem were to fill this world as he does in a revealed fashion, we wouldn't exist. All of our existence would we would just be sucked into the sun or whatever. And even in the smallest version of that, the tabernacle, Hashem has to make space for us to come in, which is
Well, maybe that's also why it was such a miracle that by the Beit HaMikdash it says that there was room for everyone when we were standing up and
right and bowing
down also. But even the concept of that there's space for everyone in a place where there's a revelation of Hashem's presence is miraculous in itself.
Right, and then on the side thing, it doesn't say that there was space for everybody. It said that nobody complained that there wasn't space. That nobody said Sarli Hamakom. It wasn't that it wasn't tight. It wasn't that it wasn't but people were at a place where they weren't complaining also, which is a miracle in and of itself. Let us admit that. Okay, so I want to share a couple of things about this. We've done a lot of conversation about this, but I want to share a couple of things. So the first thing that I think is, that's really very, very interesting. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is where Moshe, let me see where we are. Okay, if in chapter 38, so Moshe, in the beginning of in 25, he's talking about how much silver was collected. Yeah? You see where we are? Somebody want to read for me? 25, 26, 27? 28? Anybody who has it in English wants to read to us? You got it? Adina, go for it. Yeah.
Money from
Did not hear a word you just said. I'm sorry.
the silver consensus money from the community was 100 kikar and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel measurement system, which is used for the same items. This consisted of 1 sheka per head, half a shekel according to the shekel, sanctified for each person who went through the counting from the age of 20 years and upward, which totaled 603,550.
550, right? So you have 603,550 people who get counted. Half of that, because each one only gives a half a shekel. So together you have 300 and whatever the number is over there, 300,000 something. Okay, yalla. So the kikar was the round number, and the 1,775 were the shekel numbers that didn't make it into a kikar. Okay, go.
The 100 kikar silver was used for casting sockets of the holy tabernacle and the sockets of the Parsha. 100 sockets were made from 100 kikar, one kikar for each socket.
Okay, right? So the first thing we hear is that the kikar of silver was used for the sockets. A socket is, when you have a building, you need a foundation. When you have a traveling foundation, a traveling building, you need traveling foundations. So basically what happened was the boards that were around the Mishkan had like a boot around it. So this is a socket. So there's a conversation. Was it like this? Is it like these two are tied together like a three-legged race? So these two are tied together and those two are tied together. So then you end up having a solid structure. Or was each one in its own little boot? Is each socket like a boot per thing? So there's, shockingly enough, difference of opinion. So one kikar is going to, so one kikar is going to give us 100 sockets, right? Yeah.
From the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for pillars, and he covered the tops and belts on them. And copper donated.
Okay, we're gonna stick to the silver for a second. Okay, so we get an exact count of what happened with the silver. So a couple of things I want to say. First of all, one of the things that they talk about in the Gemara is that me'as could also be mea, from a word of 100, that the foundation, where we from the me'as kikar, from the 100 kikar, we make 100 sockets, and those are the Gemara talks about that there's a thing. I don't know how we quantify the thing to make 100 brachas every single day, right? And this is one of the proofs that they talk about, that where does it come from? That the foundation of the Mishkan, the foundation of our life, is this 100 brachas that we make every single day, this constant going back to a place of gratitude to Hashem. So there's they talk about if you do the Amidah 3 times a day, you have if you're if you like us and you eat a lot and make brachas, like there's a way to get it and to make the brachas, but like this place of reminding ourselves on a regular basis that Hashem is part of our life. That's one of the things that we're talking about, that the foundation of our life is this 100 bracha, whatever. But also I think like that place of how do we constantly put Hashem into our life is also part of that conversation on a expanded scale. Meaning the Gemara talks about this idea of 100 brachas every single day, which whether we do or we don't, it's a thing. I'm not knocking the thing, but I think like if you aren't doing the Amidah, which has 19 blessings 3 times a day, it's going to be a lot harder to get your 100. But I think that place of constantly reminding ourselves of Hashem in our lives, making a bracha that says, thank you, Hashem, that you, for whatever it is that we're getting, or whether it's the food that we have or the breath that we have, that's the foundation of our Mishkan, our little sanctuary that we're going to do, is that place of constant gratitude. The other very interesting thing, which I want to back up for a second, can we pause for a second and understand that Moshe Rabbeinu, who is trusted impeccably, I don't know if that's the right word, by Hashem, feels the need to come to Am Yisrael and say, this is where the money went, right? The Medrash says that Moshe heard people talking and saying, oh yeah, Moshe got money. Like, of course, it's a big building. Yeah, like it's a big campaign. Of course, Moshe got rich from that. And Moshe's like, oh, no. That's not going to happen. And that place, that the extent to which we need to be concerned about what people think. Like there's two parts to this attitude. One is like, who cares? Who are they to have an opinion? We're not influenced by other people's opinion of our behavior, right? There is a value to that. And on the other hand, to say, to what lengths does Moshe go to make sure that nobody could say he stole the money, that he took a penny from this building account? Nobody would. I don't even know if the people who were saying it maliciously. It was maybe just a comment. So like that place of where do we give people's opinions value and where do we not? Both of them are actually very important, because we know if we listen to everything that everybody said to us, we would never move forward in our avodas Hashem, because there's too many people in our lives who are like, okay, enough. Like, aren't you doing enough? Like, stop. Like, why do you have to do more things? And they're not supportive of that. And yet there's a place where we do have to hear what people are saying and respond to that. So I think that's like a super, very important lesson just in general, not only for finances, yes, for finances, but in general in life. Like that balance between where do I care what somebody says about my life and where's that point where like,
Cares in some ways, like there's always a lot around what Marita and like what people should see you doing and not doing.
Correct.
Correct
Halacha, but correct. Halacha definitely cares about what does it look like I'm doing and how do I have to behave, for sure. And at the same time, the world at large would be very happy to say, just like blend with us and don't stand out. And we're not listening to that voice. So to know which voice we listen to and which voice we don't, we can't, they say famously, when Golda Meir was the prime minister of Israel and the UN was, again, shockingly enough, condemning Israel, and she said, shmum, because is the abbreviation in Hebrew of the UN. Like, who cares about the UN? But we've seen it multiple times in the Parshiyot where what the people say is valid. When Hashem wants to destroy the people after the golden calf, and Moshe says, what are the Egyptians going to say? That's a winning argument, So like what people are going to say is important, but it also isn't important. and to be able to differentiate when I should be listening to the outside voice and when I should not be is also part of our avodah. It's easy to say we don't care what they say, but that isn't actually 100% true. And at the same time, we can't totally buy into their argument because they have lots of opinions about what we should be doing, whether as individuals or as Jewish people, and we're not buying into their thing over there. So that's one thing I wanted to say about how that balance between caring and not caring, and how do we do that, and how do we measure that? That's one thing. The other thing that it's discussed and it comes down through the Gemara and the Medrash brings it a lot. That if you take a look in verse 25, it tells the Es Ha'elef and the 1,775. And the Gemara tells us that Moshe forgot what happened with this money. He knew the kikar, he knew the part that was made for the Adanim, and he was like, what happened to those last 1,775 shekels? Where did it go? And there's a conversation. Did Hashem show him a picture of a vav, the letter vav, which is what a hook is? In the end, he made hooks out of these, right? A vav is a hook. It's called a vav. A hook is called a vav because it's the shape of a vav, that it hangs onto one side and you hang things from it, right? Did he see the letter? Somehow he remembered? It's like, oh, it went for the hooks. So we're like, so the Rebbe asks us, like, what? Like, what do you mean he forgot what he did? What does that mean that he forgot? So going on that theme of everything having a place in Hashem's home, Moshe looked at the silver Jews, and he said, the boat, we know what they are. There's so many people. We know the personality. And what is their job? They are the foundation. They are solid. Everything rests on them. That is like those Jews that have it all together and they could be supportive of the people around them and the institutions around them, not just financially, but I'm saying like the people are with the program kind of thing, like Moshe remembered where their place in Hashem's house was. But he said, I'm missing some people. Where are they? And he remembers, where were they? Where were these hooks? These hooks are on the pillars on the outside of the Mishkan, right? Remember that we have the oil moed, we have the place where the holy and the holy of holies are, and then we have curtains all the way around. There's pillars and curtains that are hanging to border off the house of Hashem. And these people, these vavim, these hooks, were hanging on the outside of the Mishkan proper, and the curtains were hanging on these vavim. That it wasn't the pillars, the solid, it was the people who were hanging on by a thread. And until Moshe remembered where their place in the Mishkan was, they themselves also don't have it. They also themselves, and the place is, they themselves are connected. It's not the strongest thing, but they are in fact connected to the house of Hashem. They are connected to the service of Hashem. And when Moshe remembers it, exactly like you said earlier, they also get to hear where their place is in the house. They're not put into an endowment fund. They are an integral part of the house of Hashem. Without them, there are no curtains. There is no border. There is no house.
It's interesting that he didn't remember initially the outside people.
It makes sense on a level.
Yeah.
No, correct. For sure, it's metaphorically. Oh, could you turn off the heating for a second? I'm falling asleep. Sorry. I think that part of it sounds. I just clicked the thing up. I think part of the reason that Moshe had a hard time remembering was because it wasn't his intrinsic space.
Yeah, because he is so foundational.
Because he's so foundational. He's so in. The Rebbe develops it much where he, through Rabbi Akiva, and like it's a whole longer conversation about that. But like that Moshe himself, we relate to the things that we relate to easily. And Moshe as leader had to also be able to relate to the places that he doesn't relate to easily.
He did remember.
But then he did remember. Meaning he was like, first he didn't remember, but then he did remember. And that's why the leader has to remember even the people who aren't the ones that you see easily, the ones that are the foundation, but even the ones that are there and they're being the outside support, that's also, and
It took the time for you.
he had to meaning,
Because he was accountable.
no, meaning you could say he had to, because he why did he know that he forgot? Because he was doing the count.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because he was taking the time to account to the people where everything and everyone essentially. I mean, he didn't say you were over there and you were over there, but when Moshe's counting, that's what he's doing. He's putting everybody into their place in the Mishkan. So it wasn't that he was saying, this is where you are. Oh, hey, Rivka Marga, you're hanging on a hook on the outside of the pillar. It wasn't what he's doing, but he had to figure out where they were and how they connect. And it happened because he felt the need to give everybody the transparency and how powerful that is, that we all are part of it. Whether we show up in a big space or we show up and we feel our connection is kind of tenuous and kind of uncertain, and we would like it to be different, but that's also an important place to be, to actually create the borders that create the space that is holy. Because on the other side of that, on the other side of the curtain, it's no longer the house of God. Everything from that point in is the house of God. That point, and then past that, it's not. So we're helping to make the framework for where the holiness, starts and ends. Which I think, this has been my not my avoida. I don't know. I've been agitating with this over the last 5 weeks. This place of the walls, of creating space, of creating holy space. I don't know if did I give the example of the baby to you guys at some point? So when a woman is pregnant, they will often be told by their doctor or their carer, whoever's taking care of them, to take a calcium supplement. Right. So my daughter was saying when she went to the doctor, so she's like, oh, right, because the baby needs calcium. And the doctor's like, baby's going to be fine. You're not going to be fine. Right. You're not going to be fine. You're going to end up, it was an old wives' tale. You lose a tooth with every pregnancy or something. Like, the baby's going to be fine. But we ourselves, if we're not replenished, we will lose out. And to me, I've been thinking about this so much over the last 5 weeks, that the walls of the base of the Mishkan that we make, when we want to create a holy space, we need to first put walls that include protection for ourselves. They're like our calcium pills. If we don't create space for us, for ourselves, where do I have a space? Which is my holy space? Which is my holy of holy space? Which is my chatzer? Which is my courtyard where more people can come in? If I don't create those boundaries in my life, they're not going to be there. Not because the people around us are mean and malicious, because we're talking about in a healthy situation. In a healthy situation, we're surrounded by nice people who will take every bit of our energy when we nurture. But if we create the space for ourselves, our calcium pills, then we then have a place for real holiness to flourish. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what the space is, to create a space. This is where I share with everyone. This is where I share with fewer people. This is where all of those spaces, we need to be able to do it for ourselves. So I want to give a plug to Jewish women and, please God, future wives and mothers and all the wonderful things that we get to do, however we actualize our lives, to remember to create space for ourselves. Not in the I take up all the space and nobody else has any space, which is a different kind of attitude I feel that's kind of going on. I like to blame everything on America, but me space, me time, whatever. But it's so true. We actually do need to take the time and the space to replenish ourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. All of those things are so important. And I've been really mulling over it a lot as we've been dealing the last couple of weeks dealing with the Mishkan, how important it is that the first thing we did is that we put up the walls. But Sal's the first thing you need to do is you need to put up the walls and create that space. It's interesting, by the way, to sort of undermine my own thought right now, is that if you look at the end, if you look at the fifth Aliyah and the sixth Aliyah, when we talk about Moshe actually putting together the Mishkan,
Yeah, no, I just opened it and the first words that I saw was he put up the wall.
But yes, but if you take a look, what if you
Around at 30, I think it's
one second, where are we now? I lost my space. This is the clothing, Ravi. They bring it all to Moshe. Okay, he blesses the people. If you look at chapter 40, if you look at 40, okay, you see, it's chapter 40. If you look at 1, 2, 3, where they start actually doing this, okay, if it says we put up the Mishkan, and then it says that you're going to put the ark there, and then you're going to put the parochas, and then you're going to put the curtain up, right? And it's going to, and it goes like that. You put the table there, set it up, put the mizbeach there, put the stuff there, and then he's putting curtains around it, which is such an interesting thing. Because if you remember, we spoke about when Moshe gives the instructions to Bezalel, he said ark first. And Bezalel's like, no, you can't build the ark. We're going to put the ark, right? So the construction, which followed Bezalel, was to build the outside walls in, right? Because that's how you build a house. But when Moshe's actually going to set it up, we're going to notice that he's actually going to put the stuff in and put the walls around. And one of the things, like a thought as we're finishing up here, there are times for both of those behaviors. There is a time where we have to put up our walls first, the normal way of behavior. We make the house, we make the structure, and then we fill it with the behavior. And Moshe's like, we don't always live in normal, regular times. And sometimes you just need to do the mitzvah right here, right now, and then build the walls around it. Like in a normal situation where we could move step by step in our relationship with Hashem and what we do, this is the normal way of behavior. We build a structure and then we fill it and then we do it. And sometimes there are times in our life, and each and every one of us sitting around this table have experienced that space where we're just like, yalla, we just got to jump in and do this. And it doesn't matter that we don't really have the proper framework for it. And we're like, where's that coming from? That's coming from Moshe. That's Moshe seeing the vision. And also actually when he built it, he put the vessels and put the walls around them.
So we didn't do it with Bezalel.
Bezalel built it that way. But when Moshe puts it up in the first time, that's what it is. Meaning when they actually travel, they're going to put the walls up and then put the vessels inside. They are going to do it Bezalel way. But Moshe's kind of highlighting for us, there are times where you got to be a little crazy.
So which is this time?
This is Moshe now, when he's in the practice time, he's saying, our first, we're just put it there, we're gonna put a curtain around it, we're gonna put the walls around it, because we gotta do it. We just gotta like bring the holiness in, we gotta bring the mitzvah in, and then we'll find the structure for it. And that's not the normal way of behavior, but it is a sometimes way of behavior that is necessary. Yes.
But we also say that it follows this theme of like transparency. Because like, listen, like most times you're not gonna see what happens inside, but for this time, I'm gonna show you so that you don't think that anything in Avodah Hashem is like hidden from you really.
Nice.
No?
Nice point. Very nice point. That in the transparency that you need to have
Like to see what happens.
see what's going on.
You're not gonna see this every day. You're not the Kohen Gadol. You're not going into the Kodesh Kodashim,
but know that it's there. You will have had the experience, and then that.
They wouldn't, right?
Right, they would never see it. And then to be able to say, we saw it once. Similar, you could argue to like, what's the point of splitting the sea if it's gonna close? If it's gonna close, because once we had that memory of seeing the depths of holiness and the revelation of Hashem in such a real way that it's like trace memory. It's trace memory for us all over the place. So I want to give us a bracha that we are now closing the book of Exodus. We are now really, really putting the pieces of our Mishkan together. And I want to give us a bracha, because for me, it's like the hardest thing is to make walls, to make space, to make holy space, to be able to delineate space as it's meant to be. And yes, in all of our work, we should be able to be stepping forward into our avodas Hashem, to know that as we travel, Hashem is traveling with us. Sometimes we'll see it easier, sometimes we won't see it so easily, but to know that it's always there. Hashem is always with us, and that we should really have a chodesh tov. We should be able to do everything that we need to do with simcha, with such a double measure of simcha. And Hashem should only give us revealed good blessings for us personally, for Am Yisrael, for all the people who are in Ukraine and sticky situations wherever they might be. The Ukraine is like the most obvious one for us now, but Hashem should send healing and love and blessings and revelation in a way of kindness and rachman. Have an awesome rest of the day and a chodesh tov.